So tariffs create unnecessary economic disruption and drive inflation. They are hurtful to all sides. That from the European Union, as a spokesman said the EU will respond firmly to the US or any trading partner that unfairly or arbitrarily imposes tariffs on EU goods.
We have made a decision. We'll be announcing it very soon, and it'll be 25%, generally speaking, and that'll be on cars and all other things. And European Union is a different case than Canada, different kind of case. They've really taken advantage of us in a different way.
The unthinkable just happened. America's tariff gamble has officially backfired. In a shocking turn, the European Union slashed U.S. imports to zero, sending a seismic shock through global trade. What started as a bold move to pressure Europe has left American industries scrambling, with businesses facing massive losses and supply chains on the brink of collapse. Could this be the moment that weakens the U.S. economy? Has Washington just handed over its trade dominance on a silver platter? Join us today as we break it all down. But before diving in, like this video and subscribe for more insights on the latest geopolitical updates. 25% tariffs on EU to be announced.
The tariffs, as you know, will start a week earlier than the reciprocal, which is going to be on a couple of weeks earlier. Reciprocal tariffs start on April 2nd. And I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to go April Fool's.
U.S. President Donald Trump has declared his intent to unleash a crippling 25% tariff on goods from the European Union, accusing the bloc of being designed to sabotage the United States. We'll be announcing it very soon, Trump warned, standing before his cabinet. It'll be 25% across the board, on cars and everything else. The European Union wasted no time firing back, vowing to hit back firmly and immediately against what it denounced as unjustified tariffs. Trump's remarks ignited a firestorm of speculation about his broader trade agenda. Uncertainty spread as he hinted at a possible last-minute delay in tariffs set to hit Mexico and Canada on March 4th. However, a senior administration official later reaffirmed the deadline, emphasizing that Trump would assess Mexico and Canada's border security efforts before making a final call. Yet it was Europe that remained in his crosshairs. On Wednesday, Trump doubled down on his fiery rhetoric, condemning the EU's trade policies as a deliberate effort to undercut American industry.
And we accept everything of them, and we have about a $300 billion deficit with the European Union. Now, I love the countries of Europe.
The European Union was formed to screw the United States. That's its purpose, and they've done a damn good job of it, he declared. But now I'm president. The EU swiftly rejected Trump's incendiary claims, insisting that its regional market had benefited American businesses by making trade within Europe more accessible than ever. It has been a boon for the United States, a spokesperson for the Commission said. We're ready to partner if you play by the rules, but we will also protect our consumers and businesses at every turn. They expect no less from us.
Tonight in Hampton, the NAACP is hosting an event at 6:30 at Bethel AME Church to discuss concerns about these.
Whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth.
But tariffs are a powerful tax on imports, imposed by the government and ultimately shouldered by the companies bringing in foreign goods. President Trump has fiercely championed these levies, vowing to use them as a weapon to revitalize American manufacturing, generate revenue, and pressure foreign nations into submission on policies he deems unacceptable. However, alarm bells are ringing over the potential consequences, with experts warning that these aggressive measures could stoke inflation. Americans may soon bear the brunt of higher prices as businesses, facing steep tariff costs, pass the burden on to consumers. Since taking office, Trump has escalated his tariff war, slapping a 10% levy on Chinese goods and laying the groundwork for further economic offensives. His administration has actively pursued custom reciprocal tariffs, tailoring duties to match each country's trade practices. Yet, in a perplexing twist, Trump has also paused or altered some of these plans, leaving businesses and analysts scrambling to decipher whether he genuinely intends to deliver on his bold threats or use them as negotiating leverage. The 25% threat he unleashed today aligns with the most extreme measures he has hinted at before, said Tobin Marcus, head of U.S. policy and politics at Wolfe Research. It's a deeply unsettling number that could shake the foundations of transatlantic trade, but at the same time, it doesn't come completely out of nowhere. Worried, not afraid.
In 2024, the US imported a total of just over 584 billion euros in goods from the EU. Between 2014 and 2024, the US imports from the EU grew by 40.
Antonin Finkelnberg of the Federation of German Wholesale, Foreign Trade and Services, which represents businesses, told the BBC that a 25% tariff on EU goods entering the US would create a difficult but not an impossible situation for Germany's economy. "We are worried, but we shouldn't be afraid," he told the BBC's Today program. Germany's car industry's products are popular in the US. Mr. Finkelnberg said many German car manufacturers were already producing in the American market, so they wouldn't be directly affected by the tariffs, but said tariffs would still drive up prices. The car parts manufactured for those cars are crossing the borders of Mexico and Canada several times, which is already driving the prices up, he added. Earlier this month, Trump shocked the global market by ordering steep 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada, America's two largest trading partners. However, in a last-minute reprieve, he suspended the duties before they could take effect, pushing the deadline to March 4th to allow for negotiations on border security.
Walmart's imports from China rose 33% from 2023 to 2024. Columbia Sportswear imports went up 50% during the same time and jumped over 80% during the March to December period. At the same time, container imports from China to the United States have surged.
On Monday, Trump doubled, declaring that the 25% tariffs would proceed on schedule as planned. But by Wednesday, in a surprising shift, he moved the deadline again, now stating that the tariffs on Mexico and Canada would be implemented on April 2nd. That date carries even greater weight. It coincides with the Commerce Department's much-anticipated recommendations for sweeping reciprocal tariffs, a strategy aimed at countering foreign trade imbalances. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick reinforced the significance of the new timeline, telling reporters the overall date is April 2nd, carefully distinguishing between tariffs linked to concerns over drug trafficking and migration from Mexico and Canada. The markets reacted swiftly. The Dow Jones, S&P 500, and NASDAQ slumped in midday trading. At the same time, the peso and Canadian dollar surged, signs of growing uncertainty and unease over Trump's volatile trade policy. Trump needs to drop the EU trade war.
The goal is to bring production back to the United States.
25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have.
After 16 years of economic missteps and self-inflicted wounds, newly designated Chancellor Friedrich Merz faces a critical turning point. As a conservative reformer, he is determined to revive Germany's stagnant economy. And this government may be the nation's last chance at real growth. The last thing he could afford was a full-blown trade war with the United States. Yet that is precisely what President Donald Trump is igniting. With his latest aggressive maneuver, he threatens to impose devastating 25% tariffs on European imports. Target number one, the German car industry, the very backbone of Europe's economy.
Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set.
Trump adding a 25% tax on all goods coming across the border from Mexico and Canada, and an additional 10% on Chinese products.
But this isn't just about tariffs. Trump's relentless pressure on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his bold trade threats against European allies both point to a deeper, more troubling reality. The question is no longer whether tensions will escalate, just how far Trump is willing to go. Are his words just part of what he sees as a negotiating dynamic that will end with an acceptable deal? Or does he believe that America first means America alone? Longtime allies pushed aside? You don't have the cards, he lectured Zelensky. On trade, however, Germany and other Western economies do have cards, ones it would be a terrible setback if they had to play. The current trade relationship between the U.S. and Europe is deeply unbalanced, tilted against the American people. This must change, and it can, but not through a reckless, tit-for-tat escalation of tariffs. The path forward lies in lowering tariffs and striving for a fair, symmetrical trade system. Ideally, EU-US trade would be completely tariff-free, but if that proves impossible, tariffs should be capped at 2% on both sides. This alone would provide a massive economic boost to both regions and serve as the foundation for what is necessary, a united front against China. Since joining the World Trade Organization in 2001, China has manipulated global trade to fuel its meteoric rise, exploiting the system to become the world's second-largest economy. Back then, China accounted for a mere 3.9% of global GDP. Today, that figure has soared to 18.3%. Meanwhile, the U.S. share has shrunk from 31.4% to 24.2%, and the EU's from 21.9% to 17.8%. How did this happen? Asymmetric trade rules. When China entered the WTO, it was classified as a developing country. It was granted privileges, subsidies, and exemptions that others were denied. The result? China thrived while fair competition suffered. A US-EU trade war, a clash between the world's first and third largest economies, would be disastrous. It wouldn't just shatter Chancellor Merz's hopes for economic revival or weaken Europe. It would also drive up US inflation, squeeze the American middle class, and ultimately backfire on the Trump administration. Most importantly, it would give China the most significant advantage of all. And that would be the ultimate irony, because China, not Europe, is the real threat here. A solution exists. Instead of escalating economic warfare, the US and Germany must do the opposite. Unite. Trump's frustration with the trade imbalance is understandable. The deficit is a staggering $235.6 billion, up 12.9% since 2023. EU nations impose an average 5% tariff on US goods, while the US imposes just 3.3% on European goods. The most glaring imbalance? The EU slaps a 10% tariff on US car imports, 4 times higher than America's 2.5% tariff on European cars.
Import Genius backs that up. Imports of solar panels, AI server racks, backup power supplies, and lithium batteries that are used to power data centers surged in the second half of 2024.
For decades, global trade was guided by a discredited belief: change through trade. The idea, championed by U.S. President Bill Clinton, German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, and others, was that the more democracies engaged with non-democracies, the more freedom would spread. That was naive. Trade did bring change, but in the opposite direction. Since 2001, China has tightened its authoritarian grip, creating a state-controlled capitalist empire with zero regulatory or ethical constraints. Free from democratic checks and balances, China has built the most efficient, most invasive economic machine in history, one that thrives on surveillance, control, and the relentless exploitation of global trade.
We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either.
Instead of further sabotaging our economies through a self-destructive trade war, the U.S. and Germany must pursue a brighter path forward. We need a robust transatlantic alliance founded upon fair, symmetrical, or even tariff-free trade. Such cooperation should also extend to North American partners like Canada, whose tariff agreements with both the U.S. and EU serve as valuable benchmarks and strategic links. Only with this unified approach can we effectively confront China as a consolidated front, compelling an end to unfair trading practices. Only then can we reconstruct a global trade system designed to benefit us collectively rather than harm our individual economies. The logic here is clear and the stakes are immense. If the world's largest economy, the U.S., negotiates independently with the second largest, China, incremental progress might occur. But transformative breakthroughs will remain elusive. However, if the first and third largest economies, the US and the EU, come together, informed by successful frameworks like those established with Canada, the potential for a groundbreaking agreement dramatically increases. It's simply common sense.
It is a surprising comment considering the contribution of Canada to the Five Eyes Alliance, not only today, but also in the past, and I would even say in the future.
A united front would represent a staggering $48.6 trillion in economic power rather than just $29.2 trillion US or $19.4 trillion EU individually. Instead of speaking for 300 million people, the U.S. could speak for 800 million. That strength commands attention, enhances leverage, and ensures better outcomes. The deal Chancellor Merz, the EU, and Trump should pursue is straightforward yet revolutionary. Lower tariffs to zero, or at least to a fair 2% average on both sides, and forge a joint transatlantic strategy on China. This new alliance wouldn't just fortify Western economies, but shift the balance of power. China, the real adversary, would no longer be able to exploit a divided West. It's a win-win. On the other hand, a trade war between allies isn't just unnecessary, it's self-inflicted economic sabotage. It would be a lose-lose in every conceivable way. If Trump is genuinely committed to America first, he must acknowledge one critical truth. It shouldn't mean America alone. A stronger bargaining position against China, a resilient U.S. economy without inflation, and a revitalized Germany leading a resurgent EU are not just European interests. The EU has drawn a line in the sand, cutting U.S. imports to zero and sending a clear message to Washington. But is this a strategic masterstroke that will strengthen Europe's economy, or a high-stakes gamble that could backfire? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.